welcome everyone, and thank you so much for coming out and supporting our students. I'm not going to introduce the Fieldschool program because you all have been participating in it for many weeks now, but I just want to echo what Nika said and say thank you all again for your really excellent work over the past month and a half. It's been really, really impressive, and it's been a real pleasure getting to meet each and every one of you and get to know you. And you're all very promising archaeologists, so please do stay in touch with all of us in the future. We're more than happy to continue to support your academic careers. If you have any questions about anything, do email us. That's why we're here, to provide that mentorship and support. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with our first presentation. Our first presenters are going to be Shoba. And she will be presenting her presentation entitled Small Finds and Metal Artifacts from Peralta, Hacienda. So let's go.
You'll also have to stand there because the projector is like literally.
Okay. Okay. So let's do that. I know we can get the lights, or Romy, we can get the lights. It was working this year for need to mirror.
Mirror, exactly.
I need to like move it maybe onto the screen.
Yeah, it's extended. So you could either drag it around.
Okay.
You got the settings.
That's a pretty photo.
Try this way.
So try it around.
It's just one of the wallpapers.
Yeah. Somebody else can access it. That's a good idea.
Show your option.
Wait, what's going on?
We're trying to mirror this way. Mirror this way.
Oh, you got it? It's the-
Okay. Sorry, it looks a little weird. My technology has just not been working recently, but my name is Shoba, and I'm going to be presenting on the small finds and metal artifacts from Peralta, Hacienda. And the analysis that we've been doing as a group has been by the Archaeological Research Facility Fieldschool students at UC Berkeley. So, just a little bit about the site in general. So the Peralta Historical Park is home to the former ranch and hacienda of Antonio Peralta and his family. And he came here to through the funding of the Anza expedition from Mexico, and with the use of his father's San Antonio land grant to kind of build this cattle empire. And while there has been a lot of archaeological research done on the Peralta family and the actual house and the former adobe structure, there hasn't been any archaeology done in the surrounding areas on the site from the 20th century. So our kind of focus as Fieldschool students was to focus on that part because it just hasn't been researched yet. So for our archaeological process, we kind of split it up into 4 main stages. The first being reviewing historical maps of the area, then using the ground penetrating radar to locate where to dig, then actually excavating targeted areas of the site, and finally analyzing our finds back at UC Berkeley. So in this presentation, I'm going to be focusing on the small finds in metal. So just to get started with the historical map analysis, so the first step of our analysis, we use the Sanborn Fire Insurance maps from the 1950s, and these maps were originally created in the 1920s, but we used the revised version. And something that we use that was pretty cool, as you can see right here, is we geo-referenced the old maps with modern day, maps that we can find in Google and stuff. And through this research, we were able to locate that there were actually houses in the plot of land that we were going to be excavating. And our kind of research focused on the eastern side of the park facing the creek. So this is just another map that kind of showcases more specifically the area that we were going to be targeting, which was right here where those 3 red houses are. So we thought this would be an area of interest because there was actually structures here during the 20th century that have since been gone. It took many different forms. We had a speaker who told us that there was garages there, but when the park was finally developed, all of those structures were destroyed. So because there's so much history and, obviously this remains under the ground, from the demolition of these houses, we decided it would be a cool little area to excavate. So the first thing that we used was the ground penetrating radar. And we practiced it first here at UC Berkeley with Scott Byram, and then we kind of took what we learned and did it in that little strip of land at Peralta. So we started to notice a few anomalies under the ground, and that kind of gave us a little bit of a basis to start our excavation. So this is kind of a map of what the types of things that we were seeing on the GPR screens, and through the GPR radar we were able to locate 2 kind of main anomalies. The first being what we thought could have been a potential wall, like foundation or housing structure, and then the second was a pit feature, which has been represented through the GPR data right here. So once we kind of collected our GPR data, it was time to actually start mapping our units and get on to excavation. So we decided to excavate 2 by 3 meter pits that we located using the GPR survey. And here's kind of a map of the 2 units we decided to work with. That is the first unit, and those numbers are all of the different contexts we worked with. And this is the second unit, and those were the other 2 contexts of that unit. So we used single context excavation methodology, which essentially means that we were digging layer by layer and recording each layer instead of just digging straight down. So, this was the one where we thought we found a pit, and that was the unit where we thought we found the wall structure. And this is just an image of us excavating unit 2. So, real quick, just about unit 1. This was the unit where we thought we were going to find the wall structure, but it actually proved to be pretty uninteresting. The soil conditions were really hard to chip away at, and in the first few layers we didn't really find much except really small pieces of ceramic and glass and bone. But again, nothing very significant. We got excited when we started to see different color striations in the ground. We were thinking maybe there was like some breaks or something there, but so with that we decided to do a test pit. And right here you can kind of see the test pit, but it just ended up being construction fill, which was kind of not so fun, but that's okay. But the cool thing we did find about this unit was this little feature right here, which was kind of like a hole that just kept going. And we kind of figured, it might have been the site of a post or something that was used in a garage or a house. So that was kind of cool. But again, there was really nothing left for us to do here, so we kind of abandoned this unit and moved on to unit 2, which the other group was already working on. So in unit 2, this was the one where we thought we found the trash pit, but we had to get through layers of construction fill first, and we found a lot of cool things. We found a lot of ceramics that had been decorated, lots of glass bits with different embossings and things, and we found a lot of big chunks of bones that had cut marks on them, and even some sheep teeth, which was kind of interesting. So this was really cool, and I feel like we found almost, I would say like literally 90% of the artifacts in this unit. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to actually excavate the trash pit, but the stuff we did excavate was really cool, so hopefully one day somebody can excavate the trash pit, because I'm sure there's really cool stuff in there. And this was just an image of Unit 2. And at the end of excavation, we just backfilled all the units using the soil that we took out originally. So in the artifact analysis phase, we came back to Berkeley and we started to notice 4 main artifact categories, and those were ceramic, glass, faunal, which is like bones, and then metal / miscellaneous / low finds, which is what I focused on. So this is just a picture of like all the different types of artifacts we were seeing. So here's some ceramic, this is bone, that's metal, and like all the little clear pieces are glass. And this was after we had washed them, this was just the artifacts drying. So this was a little graph that we created just for the artifacts that I was looking at. So basically just tells you the different types of artifacts found per context. And as you can see again, like the most types of things we were finding was in context 1011, which was in Unit 2, the more interesting one. And across the board, some of the most types of artifacts we were seeing was brick and nails. So I want to start presenting some of the more interesting artifacts that we found. So the first thing we found that was kind of cool was this 4-hole Prosser button. So this was a button that was very common throughout the 19th century, and it was invented by the 2 Prosser brothers. It was created by putting clay in a mold and then glazing the surface. And the type of glaze that you would have been seeing, the type of finish on these buttons, was called orange peel glaze. But as you can see, it's pretty worn out, so we're not really seeing much of that here. However, this button was pretty common across, Europe and the United States. And it was just a very standard button. It would have been on a lot of different garments or garments across the different classes. The next thing that we kind of found that was pretty cool was a clay tobacco pipe bowl, rim, and pipe fragment, or stem fragment, sorry. So this was kind of cool. We determined that it was made from clay, and this decoration was kind of like a piping rim that would have been across the whole thing. Unfortunately, we don't have like a full piece, but it is cool to be able to see that. This was a really common design and artifact that was used across the 19th and 20th centuries, because actually starting from like the 1700s, the preferred way of smoking was through a little pipe. And you can see right here, this is like the stem of it. And it's made of clay. And unfortunately, there wasn't like any real, maker's mark or anything very indicative of a specific maker or design of pipe. But we did determine that it was a pretty common pipe, and this was just like a very basic model you would have seen everywhere in many different places. So in the 20th century, these started going out of fashion, and then cigarettes kind of took over. Very quickly, these are just 2 unknown metal objects that we found. Since we can't really determine what they were, there's not much to say about them, but they probably came from, an appliance or a pipe. Well, this one from an appliance, and this one from a pipe, because it's curved. But the thing to note about these 2 is that they're not rusted, so they're probably coated with zinc. So this was probably like one of the more interesting finds, I think, for sure. And this was this really big horseshoe that we found. And it's ferrous, meaning that it's made of iron, because you can see all the rust. But because of the size of it, we were pretty certain that it came from a large horse, probably a working horse. And something we found out was that this was actually like a standardized horseshoe, which we were able to determine by looking at the side of it because it had like manufacturing marks. And these types of horseshoes started being manufactured in the 1830s after Henry Burden invented the horseshoe machine to mass produce these. So again, we're not really sure, if it was actually like a workhorse used it, or if it was, just decoration above a doorway, but it is a pretty cool find, so that was definitely interesting to see. Also, again, really quickly, we found different types of nails, rectangular and circular nails. So the rectangular style was really popular from the 1830s to the 1890s because it was kind of easier to make that shape, because prior to this, blacksmiths had been hand-making metal nails. So during this time, things kind of became more standardized and mechanized. So this part of the nail, the kind of long part, was actually made in a factory, and then the top part of the nail was still hammered in by blacksmiths until the 1890s. And then when the 1890s hit, factory production really hit it off, and then the modern circular nail became produced. So yeah. And finally, I don't know why there's this big space, but we found half of this bone button, which was kind of cool. And through research, we kind of figured out, just by looking at half of it, it probably had 5 holes. And I don't know if you guys can tell from this picture, but the holes are kind of uneven. So what we deduced is that those holes were probably hand drilled. And hand drilled bone buttons were really popular during the Civil War era in the United States, from the 1850s to 1860s. And since it's really unassuming and kind of plain, it probably would have been used for something that you wouldn't be able to see, like an undergarment. So yeah, those were the cool findings that we found. And finally, just for some takeaways, for me personally, I felt like conducting research at a place with such diverse history and being able to really have a very big stake researching the artifacts to understand people's lives was very rewarding, because not only did we get to do all of the archaeological process, but we also got to engage with the community. I think we can all really agree that it was really awesome to see all the little kids really interested in the bones that we were digging up, or have dog walkers ask us questions about what we were doing. So I think it was really cool to have the community be so interested in their shared history. I feel like for too long, archaeology has been really inaccessible to those who have almost the biggest stakes in it, I would say. So through this process and working with you all, I really enjoyed being able to share our research with all who are interested, not just the academic community, and learning about the lives of those who lived here and comparing and contrasting those things with, the current neighborhood and the current community allows us to see how the past and present go hand in hand every day. So, thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Shobha. Really excellent work and really excellent presentation. Next up, we have Rabia Luis, who will be presenting the exploration of glass artifacts.
I do love this.
They just sent out an email this morning saying good news, the internet's gonna be updated.
They say that every semester.
Hello everyone, we will be exploring our glass artifacts today found at the Peralta Hacienda in Oakland, California. So the Peralta Hacienda is a historical park in Oakland's Fruitvale district, and the Peralta brothers were given land by their father under these Peralta's land grant that was dating back to the 1820s. Over the decades, the original 45,000 acre rancho was reduced and now consists of just a 6-acre park. The focal point of the park is a restored 1870s Italianate frame house that was built by Antonio Peralta. Our archaeological research focuses on the 20th century occupation of the site, as the original land has undergone developmental changes over time. Our archaeological research was divided into 3 phases: historical map analysis, survey and excavation, and artifact analysis. To begin archaeological research on the site, we examined a 1951 Sandburn fire insurance map to locate the 4 houses that were on the east side of the upper portion of the park. Using known and recognizable structures that are still present today, we aligned the original Sandburn map with modern satellite images to pinpoint those exact locations. In this map, you can see the Sandburn map just overlaid. And then in this second map down here, we actually outlined the houses to get a more precise location over the satellite images. So for our survey and excavation methods, we started with a pedestrian survey where we conducted it over the east side of the upper portion and also the lower portion of the park. And we were conducting it in 2 teams of 5 with a catch and release style method. We then decided to do ground penetrating radar, which operates by sending pulses of electromagnetic energy into the ground and then measures the distances it takes for the signal to reflect back. The GPR was conducted over the east side of the upper portion of the park where those 4 20th century houses were located. And from that, we created a lawn grid because it's now over a lawney area. And the lawn grid was set up using the sidewalk as our starting reference, which points about 31 degrees off north. And we used this line to set up our GPR transects. So these individual slices of GPR transects were processed to clean up the data. And then this data could then be geo-referenced in the Sandburn maps and the contemporary maps of the site, which you can see in this image. Using the lawn grid and the deposits that we found in the GPR data, we plotted 2 excavation units using a GPS rover. The units were located over a potential wall and deposit, although interpretations of GPR data aren't always accurate. The corner of each unit and lawn grid were then plotted using this whole station. And you can see that top one is unit 1 and the bottom one is unit 2. So we did a single context excavation style for the Peralta site, and through single context excavation, every deposit or event is defined and given a unique number. Unit 1, the northern unit, and Unit 2, the southern unit, were excavated individually with a team of 5 student archaeologists per unit. So Unit 1 produced several features such as a post hole for house or garage and a foundation for a wall. Despite the presence of the features, Unit 1 had very little glass in comparison to Unit 2. This is the Unit 1 scan. And then for Unit 2, all contexts except the very last one, 1012, were a product of construction fill. And on the last day of excavation and the opening of context 1012, a potential trash deposit was reached but was not excavated.
My name is Luis, and now I'm going to be talking about the artifact analysis. So between Unit 1 and 2, there were 335 glass artifacts that were recovered. Our findings presented today were recovered mostly from Unit 2, and we have chosen the most complete glass artifacts for our analysis, and we can only focus on their color and vessel type. When talking about color, it's a universal characteristic of glass, and archaeologists can use color for creating and establishing different classifications and minimal vessel counts as well. But the color does not always indicate glass type or technology type. Despite this, we've chosen to look at color because of the limited amount of complete or marked glass artifacts that we recovered from the site. The presence and use of these artifacts within the 20th century occupation of the site indicates that the artifacts were not that expensive. And this interpretation relies on the thickness of the glass as well as some of the vessel types such as bottles, drinking glasses, and tumblers. And this suggests that the residents chose affordable and inexpensive glassware for their homes.
So in these following two charts, we just separated out the vessel type and color in each individual context. So this first chart is vessel type. Where are we? There it is. So 1011 in Unit 2 produced the most amount of glass fragments in total, but also the most amount for the bottles. And then again, 1011 is just coming out on top, and they produced the most colorless glass also.
Now talking about the individual artifacts, we have artifact 1, which is called number 1. And this first artifact is pretty much the base. So you guys can see here, this is the base of the wine glass. We found it in the context 1003. And the color of this artifact is colorless, and this is a term used to describe clear glass. The production of colorless glass has been a major goal of glass manufacturers since early times, and the vessel type of this artifact is a stemwork. And some historical background says the stemwork can be made of different pieces of glass attached to each other, and this is an ancient technique that continues to this day. Now going to the artifact 2, which is also catalog number 2. The second artifact is the lip of a soda water bottle, which is also found. It was also found in context 1003, and the color is aqua, and it's referred to as soda glass. And soda glass is one of the most common in ancient glasses. And typically, soda glass has a bluish and greenish tint due to the impurities present within the batch. Soda glass was and is still used throughout the world. Despite its specific name and composition, it's widely available. In the 19th century, soda water was a popular product because its refreshing nature, and archaeologists have also noted soda water's hygienic and medicine properties in reference to the 19th middle class ideals of hygiene. Now going to the artifact 3, which is column number 6. This third artifact presented are 2 solarized colorless glass pieces from context also 1003, and the vessel type is indefinite due to having such small fragments. And when first produced, this type of glass was colorless but became solarized. This color is produced by the manganese and the glassmaker soap used to counterattack the tint of iron oxide in the glass. And the resulting glass turns into a slight purplish tint after being exposed to ultraviolet rays of the sun. And it was most common from the late 19th century until World War I. Now going to the artifact 4, which is column number 25. The fourth artifact is a broken tumbler from context 1011. And this artifact is colorless, as you guys can see, and the vessel type is tumbler. So pretty much tumblers are recognized as a drinking vessel and come in different shapes. Generally, tumblers have a flat or shallow base. They can also be cylindrical, barrel-shaped, and flared. But this tumbler is panel and resembles modern-day whiskey glasses with a thick base and body. Now with our concluding remarks, in conclusion, the research of the Peralta Hacienda Historical Park has given us the knowledge and practical experience to operate with a wide range of archaeological methods. The survey and excavation phase was completely successful and allowed us to obtain glass artifacts in addition to numerous like funnel, ceramic, metal, and also small finds. And the glass analysis also allowed us to make inferences about consumer practices of glassware and how the 20th century occupants could have strategically purchased affordable and inexpensive items. And for future excavation and comparative analysis can provide more insight into the 20th century occupation of Peralta.
All right, thank you, Luis, and thank you, Brad. Abby, for sharing your analysis of the glass. Really excellent work. Our next presenters are going to be Giselle and Hansen, who are going to be speaking about the final remains from Peralta, Hacienda.
Borrow someone else's laptop, doesn't mind that. I'm supposed to die.
Can we get the next person?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, yeah.
So-
You can put it on the high.
Yeah, why don't you guys share your presentation with someone?
Yeah, we put it in the spreadsheet.
We did? Okay, great.
It's on the.
So while I pull that up, we are actually going to talk to Luis and Jesus. We'll be presenting Peralta Hacienda Historical Park Archaeological Assessment.
So we'll go.
Yeah, you guys can go.
Oh.
And then we'll, and you can.
All right, so my name is Luis, and this is my partner Jesus. And so we're going to be presenting again on the Peralta Hacienda Historical Park, and this is just our archaeological assessment. So who we are, this research and archaeological assessment were conducted by 10 Fieldschool students from the Archaeological Research Facility located on the University of California, Berkeley campus. With the help of our Fieldschool cohort and leaders, we researched, planned, and executed an archaeological excavation at Peralta Hacienda Historical Park that focused on the neighborhood's 20th century history. Once we completed our fieldwork, we took artifacts of various material remains and soil samples back to the ARF to begin cataloging and analyzing them in hopes of synthesizing historical information about the occupation of this site. We hope that the organization of this website will help audiences better understand the processes necessary for conducting successful and ethical archaeological research. We also hope that our work will help emphasize the historical importance of this location, which has already been meticulously curated and displayed by the organizers who work tirelessly to keep this park and museum in operation.
Historical research, laying the records to the top. The Peralta family home that serves as the historical museum was built in the Italianate architectural style in the 1870s. The two original Peralta family adobe homes collapsed during an earthquake in 1868. A modern outdoor stage commemorates the Victorian home's original location from where it is now, which was moved in 1897 to fit the new city regulations. In the 1970s, community members began creating the modern 6-acre park we know today. The park would open to the public in 1996. Over the 20 years, the park organizations successfully gained $6 million of state and local funding for the park. The house we see today underwent restoration in 2001, leading to the creation of exhibits inside the homes. In combination with the historical records of the development of this park, we also use QGIS as software to georeference Sanborn fire insurance maps onto modern Google satellite images. This software helped us realize the potential significance of the park's east side. Our historical georeference revealed that some of the structures had been removed for the park's expansion. We further enhanced those needs by conducting a ground-penetrating radar survey that helped us fine-tune the way to place our excavation units. As you can see, that's the Sanborn maps placed onto the Google. Ground-penetrating radar. GPR is a non-intrusive method of surveying below the surface. It uses radar pulses from an antenna to map and exact potential archaeological features and artifacts. The radar frequencies show potential objects, voids, cracks, and changes in the ground, which can aid archaeologists in deciding where to set up an excavation unit. Our use of GPR requires a survey grid. For our survey grid, we ran our transects in intervals of 2 meters, and within those 2 meters, we ran our 4 counter panels transects every 67 meters and 134 centimeters. Although GPR surveys are highly useful as a re-excavation step, the technology is not formidable and should be used in combination with other survey methods. That's GPR. A total station allows archaeologists to record high precision GPS measurements accurately. We use a total station to plot points accurately around our excavation unit. We also took measurements of features within Unit 1. With the data we recorded using the total station, we imported our reports onto GIS. So this is Unit 1, and this is Unit 2. As you can see, that's the feature they have with 2 pits.
So great look, small find. Using the Polygam app on iOS, we were able to LiDAR image scan our units at the end of our excavations. This scan is of Unit 1, and although it's interesting in features and topography, the unit itself was not very artifact rich. Looks can be deceiving. Using the same iOS LiDAR software, we scanned Unit 2, and although Unit 2 was not as exciting topographically, we extracted most of our artifacts from here. The unit was excavated using only 3 contexts, but still provided a rich array of material remains that supplemented our ability to conduct artifact analysis back at the ARF. So faunal analysis, animal remains. Why do archaeologists look at animal remains? Faunal analysis in archaeology is important because it can reveal information on cultural practices and help reconstruct people's daily lives, eating habits, beliefs, and values based on the remains that are left behind. Faunal analysis also provides insight into human-animal relationships, and when used in combination with multiple lines of anthropological analysis, ultimately helps to create a comprehensive understanding of the past.
It is important to consider cut differences because of how the butchered animals may have been acquired. A mechanical cut indicates a purchase from a butcher. A hand-saw cut implies an in-home butchery. Since the saw marks on the funnel remains that show evidence of being butchered, we feel confident in asserting that these cuts were made using a mechanical saw. Typically, cuts using a hand saw are much less clean and appear more jagged because of the changes in applied pressure. A mechanized saw is way more efficient at maintaining applied pressure and not as susceptible to human fatigue. 3 of the most compelling examples of these butchery can be seen on catalog items 177, 194, and 221.
So again, the first example, catalog item 177, is a humerus of the taxon Ovis aries. We see bony landmark features like the trochlea and olecranon fossa, both of which features aid in flexion and extension articulations with the ulna. On the distal end of the diaphysis, we see a clean saw mark with visible serrations. Upon initial inspection, one might consider this to be a strange cut of meat indicative of a cheap cut. And given that the 1950 census occupational data from Peralta Hacienda Historical Park generally show middle-class families, it would be erroneous not to consider that these families who were eating these animals were maximizing the use of these cuts, therefore accessing the marrow of the bone and boiling them to make a bone broth or stock. And so the same ideas can be applied to catalog item 194, which is likely the scapula of taxon Bos taurus. Strangely, the scapula is cut along the glenoid fossa and down the middle of the superior angle. Therefore, multiple things can be true. One being is that the cut is cheap. Alternatively, that the family purchased this cut of meat, maximized its utility by awkwardly cutting it to access the marrow. And another feature to consider is that reveals information about butchery practices at this time is the trabecular bone. The trabeculated bone tissue's microstructure is dense, suggesting that younger animals were used for slaughter. And unsurprisingly, we feel the same is true for catalog item 221, which is likely from taxon Bos taurus. This catalog item is another humerus, as evidenced again by the olecranon fossa. Similarly, this humerus has been cut on the distal end of the diaphysis, which would have exposed the marrow. Other inferences we can make about the quality of life for this 20th century neighborhood might be found in the ceramic fragments we found in our excavation units. Most of what we found were white wares improved, or colloquially referred to as institutional wares. They received this moniker because of their lower price point compared to transfer printed ceramics and porcelain, and also because of their durability. So the idea then is that the abundance of cost-effective ceramics also supports the idea that the strangely butchered meats do in fact reflect a cheaper cut and limited funds for more premium cuts of meat. And then here we have images of the catalog items.
These are just all the images, as you can see it's cut there. It's another angle, which is this is the Bos taurus scapula. And then that's an angle on the other side. Just all the bones. This image shows the ASH catalog ones that were all butchery, but we couldn't really figure out they were. But as you can see, all the saw marks on them, right here, there, and this one.
So to conclude, we hope that the organization of our website has helped audiences better understand the processes necessary for successful and ethical archaeological excavations. Over the last 6 weeks, we have learned a comprehensive array of survey methods, and our website is in no way representative of our entire learning journey. We also worked with the botanical remains extracted from our soil flooding process and looked at them under a microscope. Also, apart from that artifact analysis, we cataloged each item. We excavated and recorded them onto a Google Sheet organized by material type, and we believe that this kind of record making contributes to ethical stewardship of the archaeological record because artifacts often go uncatalogued and forgotten, leaving the provenience of the items unclear or difficult to reconstruct. Thank you.
Alright, thank you, Louise.
And then Hamza, you need to pull it up from here, yeah?
Yeah, please do. It's really excellent presentation. Louise, if you
Just go to the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet. That we all needed like the cat.
Doesn't Louise do bad money?
Oh, you might have to sign it on my RTFS source. No, we shouldn't, right? It's published, right?
Oh no, we just did preview because publishing it makes it like weird.
So you guys are gonna have to log in your story using your own account.
Sign
You might want to exit out of the other one too, the archives. Yeah.
Like published.
Oh, wait, no. I think it's only on one, you're in.
We do something like the same thing, just like the printable.
What do you want from me, Bradley? Don't say that. You're gonna keep me up all night thinking about it. That's not how it's done. This has to be different. I usually let like Google or Apple
Okay, everyone, so let me get my scroll up. Our next presenters are going to be Giselle and Hamza, and they're going to be presenting their work on faunal remains from Peralta.
Okay. So before we get into the meat of the data, we're just going to go give a quick background of the history of this site. So Peralta Hacienda Historical Park was part of a 45,000 acre land grant given to Luis Peralta in 1820 by the Spanish colonial government. He then would divide that land into four distinct parts. One of the sons being Antonio, who inherited the part that we see this house in the neighborhood where we excavated the site in Oakland. But that 45,000 acre land grant quickly became zero after he sold. After Antonio had to sell his part of the land to Henry Z. Jones in 1897. And Henry Z. Jones then would develop the section of land he got into what we can see as the modern, a part of the Oakland system, city system. So basically all that indigenous, colonial history and so on was pretty much forgotten by the locals until in the 1970s when friends of the Peralta Hacienda Historical Park unbeknownst to them, unearthed all that rich history and brought it to the community. So really, they did excellent work for the past 50 years. So yeah.
Alright, so to begin our research, we looked at historical maps, and it was useful for us because these maps provide records of features, landscapes and places that may not exist anymore or that exist in a transformed form, just like we see at the Peralta site. So we examined the Sandhill insurance maps of the 20th century neighborhood that was once occupied the eastern side of the park, to determine whether the remnants of the old block could be, where the old blocks could be. So because they were used for insurance, the property lines were extremely accurate, which allowed us to locate the exact perimeter of each home. So prior to excavation at the site, we participated in various forms of non-destructive survey methods as a way to explore the site. So our team on the very first day, we, in the line of about 5 people, a meter apart, walked in a straight line in a given area with the goal of marking any artifacts on the surface. And we did this, this provided us with a basic understanding of what we may encounter as we continue our field work. And because we wanted to gain more information about what was deeper, what was further down, we decided to use a ground penetrating radar, which uses radar pulses to image the subsurface. And as you can see here, we created an image using those images from the GPR, and we overlaid them on top of the sand-borne maps, giving us a better idea of where the demolished homes were located. The excavation process, using that data that we just saw, we delineated 2 3x2 meter excavation units for our excavations, and we began this process by marking the grids with nail strings and using the GPS, as well as the toll station. That's actually, well, that's the pole. But, we participated in the single context excavation, which is an excavation method where each context is given a unique context number and it's recorded on the context sheet. And this is an example